Commonwealth versus Thomas O'Donnell. Commonwealth versus Thomas O'Donnell. Excuse me, 22 CR 00103. Are you Thomas O'Donnell?
Yes, sir.
You were born in 1961.
I am.
The last four digits of your social security number are 6773.
Yes.
We have an ex parte motion that will be heard later. Is that correct?
Yes, Judge.
And then there is a motion to release property. It was a vehicle. The Commonwealth moves the court to enter an order.
I'm not familiar with it.
Well, I'm fixing to tell you what it is here. 2017 Ram Dooley truck, and gives a serial number to Paul Wilhelm. Now, who is Paul Wilhelm? Is this the victim's truck that we're talking about?
I understand there's an order that.
Okay, I will sign the order. I just want to make sure Paul Wilhelm is an heir, or is that correct? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the Commonwealth has agreed to release the truck to Paul Wilhelm. Is that correct? I'll enter the order. Next matter has to do with sentencing.
At first glance, this might seem like routine courtroom housekeeping. Releasing property, confirming paperwork, checking reports. But don't let the procedural start fool you. These early moments are often the calm before a major sentencing decision. And in this case, the stakes couldn't be higher. A murder conviction and a life sentence hanging in the balance.
Mr. O'Donnell, if you had an opportunity to review the pre-sentence investigation report presented by probation and parole, is it substantially correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there any reason this gentleman should not be sentenced today?
No, Your Honor.
Do you have any statement?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. O'Donnell,
Notice how the judge immediately shifts focus from the defendant to the impact on the victim's family. In sentencing, courts aren't just evaluating the crime itself. They're weighing the human cost. Victim impact statements can become some of the most powerful moments in a courtroom because they show the lasting consequences that extend far beyond the day the crime occurred.
you were tried by a jury here in Cumberland County, and a lengthy trial. You were afforded every opportunity and a valid defense, expert witnesses, that sort of thing. But the jury's found you guilty of murder and sentenced you to life. I've carefully reviewed this case, read all of the statements, reviewed all of the information that was there. I was particularly touched by the victims' statements, the relatives. The deceased victim's mother made a very poignant statement. I don't know whether, I assume she's still alive. She had very serious kidney cancer and lost her son, lost a caretaker. I had to suffer through 2 years or so since you committed this crime. The doubt she expressed, as the daughter did, the son who testified in this case, what effect your terrible, horrendous actions had on that family. Your actions had a terrible impact on this community. This community is not a violent community.
Here's something that stands out. The judge points to the defendant's relatively limited criminal history and essentially asks, how did we get here? That's a question many people ask in high-profile murder cases. Can someone with little prior criminal record still be capable of a calculated, violent act? Let me know what you think in the comments.
We have very few murders that are committed here. You never stepped up and accepted responsibility for your actions, and I looked at you very carefully, even when there was a description of the state of the victim's body, how he was decomposed, how after you left him over there, having shot him twice in the head and twice in the body, his body decomposed. The autopsy, when we opened, I won't even go into the details, but the autopsy would be something that these jurors or anyone who saw this case and this family could never get out of their mind. And then I look at your record, a very sparse record of any criminal activity, and I wonder.
This is no longer a standard sentencing speech. The judge is methodically laying out the evidence that convinced both the jury and the court, from cell phone tracking and hotel records to DNA evidence. It's a reminder that modern homicide investigations often rely on digital breadcrumbs that can reconstruct a suspect's movements with remarkable precision.
How you got in this situation. You spent days at this trial with your very able counsel trying to discredit witnesses who were going to locate the 2 cell phones here that they could track from California to Texas to here, over to the scene. They gave evidence how you stayed in a hotel down in Cookland and looked at the exact address where this murder was. Your DNA was found in the vehicle. And after all this sort of thing toward the end, you tried to create a situation where you were there. I don't know why you wasted everybody's time and effort going through all this challenges forensic evidence when your folks were going to say that. And I will tell you something else, counsel.
And there it is, the sentence. Life in prison. The judge doesn't just announce the punishment. He explains why he believes it's warranted, whether viewers agree with every word or not. This is a textbook example of a judge creating a detailed record of the reasoning behind a sentence, something that can become important if the case is later reviewed on appeal.
You know, I've thought long and hard about your closing argument in this case, where you put forth your theory of the case without any evidence whatsoever. So it existed out of the whole cloth. So I practiced law for 45 years. This is one of the most cold-blooded, heinous acts that I've ever seen anybody committed. I don't know how, with the background I saw from you, you got your mind to do this. I'll never understand how you could, come up with this plot, use the burner phones to make the appointments, go over there and call a guy that's just trying to make a living. Call him over there thinking he was going to get a job and just cold-heartedly murder him and leave him there to decompose. So maybe you'll have time to accept your actions while you're there, but I'm going to sentence you to life in prison. And I'll just tell you that I think that is most deserved. And if this had been a death penalty case, I would have been surprised, whatever.
One final twist before the hearing ends. The judge turns his attention to the defense's courtroom strategy. That's an unusual and dramatic development. Judges generally give attorneys broad room to advocate for their clients. So when a judge openly questions whether a lawyer's conduct should be reported to the Bar Association, it's a sign that tensions ran exceptionally high throughout this case. Do you think the judge's criticism was justified, or did the defense simply push every argument available? Let us know below.
Whatsoever that you would have been sentenced to death in the electric chair. So you're in the custody of the Department of Corrections to serve the rest of your natural life in the penitentiary. Thank you. Take it back.
Your Honor, I do have an order to allow them to proceed in former populace on his appeal if I should proceed.
Submit it.
Can I approach it?
We'll give it to the bailiff. You can take him out. I'd like to speak to the attorneys up here for a second. Mr. Hunley, will you come up here? Great. Practice this case as far as the closing argument is concerned. You absolutely not allowed to put a factual situation in. It's no predicate, nothing to do better. Again, I think this theory about being falling off and other people, there wasn't any evidence. And I was a defense lawyer myself for a long time. I think y'all ought to carefully consider that. I've been weighing back and forth where I'll report your actions to the Bar Association. Because you just can't do that. And, so I'm doing some prayerful consideration. Up to that point, your opening statement was iffy on these things that you can decide later in a case that you're not going to introduce evidence. You run the risk of someone at that juncture saying, she said that this one, but they didn't do it. But how can you justify it? coming up with a theory of the case that there's no evidence whatsoever. That's something, that's a rhetorical question. I don't want to answer that now. But I want y'all to consider what you're doing, and I want you to communicate what your position is on that. Thank you very much.